Hi, this is Nick Lowry and my buddy Kyle Sloan, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about Uke today. Uke is the role that we take on when we're practicing Aikido. It's the role of receiving energy. That's literally what Uke means. Often when we get engaged in Aikido practice, we get real busy with the ideas of Tore. Tore literally means the one who takes the technique, or who takes the point of the technique. Uke is the one receiving the technique, and so we tend to psychologize our way into the way of looking at Uke as the loser, the guy who's falling down. He's getting defeated. He's the fella launching the attack typically, and he's the fella that the technique is done on, and then the fella that's collapsing to the ground in one way, shape, or form, sometimes with some sort of lock. But basically, we tend to typecast Uke in our head as the loser. And really, that's not what Uke means. Uke is the receiver of the energy of the technique. And so we have to really kind of wrap our heads around that a little bit. Uke is an equal and active participant in the activity of learning Aikido. He's not just a blank canvas for us as Tories to do Aikido on. Uke is actually where a whole lot of the learning process and the internalization of the skill sets that you're trying to develop when you do Aikido come from. Literally, you cannot learn the internalization of timing, for instance, the timing of hand changes, the timing of feet, the timing of postural changes, the timing of when to execute the throwing technique. You cannot get that accurately from just doing the Tore side. You can get the mechanics of it. You can get the hands in the right places and the grips just right, and you can do a lot of it, but you can't get the finesse or when the activity should be occurring. And so we've seen people who try to train this way, where they have, they can only come in and they're just going to be Tore, and they never do Ukemi. Ukemi is just the activity of Uke, the activity of receiving the falls and receiving the energy of the techniques. They never do the receiving part, and they wind up with a very limited range in terms of what they can do in terms of Aikido. They can do pretty good self-defense and just keeping people off them. They do things that knock people down, but they have a hard time developing any real finesse, any real subtle control, because that all comes from the internalization we get from Uke. So we need to understand how investing in Uke and investing in our falling activities and our attacking activities and learning what committed attacks have to do really give us a sense of a shortcut into developing higher level skill in our Aikido work. That's the first point. Now, when you look at Aikido across a wide spectrum, you find a huge different body of expression as to what people prefer to use as Uke. You have people exhibiting ideas in Uke that say, okay, we want this guy to just come in with full power and full strength and full resistance, everything he can do, because we want it to be really real. And there are preferences that go in that direction. The downside of that is that it's actually a slower learning curve for Ukes in that course of training to develop the internalization of skill. It also has a higher injury rate, and so that's another downside. But given that people are going to have a relatively equal injury rate, were that were so, you're still going to have the differential in terms of how quickly you can develop skill. And the reason for that is that as Uke, if I'm attacking Kyle, for instance, and we're going to use the attack of, say, I'm going to grasp his wrist. This is a very common Aikido attack. He has a wrist out there, and I'm going to grab a hold of it. As I come in and place my power onto his body and attempt to grapple with the man, the more power and energy I store in my body and grip down with, the harder I get him right here. Actually, the more my body tries to solidify behind that and turn into like I'm a statue, hold this thing with great power and get ready to launch maybe a blow to him or something, the more fixated I am on my own gripping and my own power, the less sensitivity I will have in terms of what I'm recording in my sensory database for what he's doing to me. So it's kind of critical. If I lock down really, really strong, and he does his Aikido activity, boy, it jerks me off balance kind of dynamically like that. And I get this sudden catastrophic feeling in my body. But I don't get to record much of that. I don't get to learn much of it. I got to do many, many repetitions, very hard, of this to really kind of get the juice out of that, to get the internalization and the timing out of that. Now, if I go to the other end of the spectrum and I'm attacking him with just a minimalist sort of approach, I'm just going to close the distance and touch his hand, but barely grip at all, then he does his thing and I get very little reactivity in my body. Because why? I haven't committed much energy to it at all. I've only committed just a little tiny bit. So again, I'm sort of robbing myself of the maximum window of opportunity for what I can record out of the engagement. As I grasp too lightly and it just sort of breaks free in my grip, this might be a strategy for false attack or something, but it's a pretty meaningless attack in that there's such a little commitment of energy that my posture is barely affected at all. And so often people who are afraid of falling, they haven't developed their falling skills thoroughly, might be attacking very minimalist just to sort of protect themselves from the sense of off balance and falling that they fear. Or it might be a strategy of them trying to defeat the whole mechanism. That's possible too, sort of fake attack. Either way, they're really cutting their own throat because I'm missing out on what I really need to be here studying as Uke. As Uke, when I grasp down, we found that to get the maximal effectiveness out of the engagement from Uke's side, as I grasp, I don't want to grip down like I'm a vice grip, like I'm just going to try to crush his wrist. I also don't want to grasp like sort of airy-fairy stuff where it just is fluffy. I want to grasp with just enough pressure that all the space goes away in my palm. I want to grasp without the index finger locking down because that adds extra tension into the tendons that I don't really want or need. And I want to give him just that amount of pressure. It's a pressure gradient we prefer because it gives you the maximal amount of feedback in the system. It doesn't overcommit your body and it doesn't undercommit your body. My center of gravity is committed and connected firmly. I'm establishing some control on him. And now I have this entire engagement. As he takes me off balance, do that again, that's lovely. Yeah, it's happening of a slow enough time frame that I can feel not only the rise and fall of the action, but I can also feel what's setting me up. I can feel what's happening in his wrist. I can feel what's happening in this body drop and in this next rise. I can feel the whole thing start to happen. So it's like I'm taking the attack and I'm committing just enough under the right amount of tension to create almost a slow motion feel to it. So I can analyze it as it's happening and I don't have to be unconscious. The harder I come, the more unconscious that reflex gets. And it's hard for me to record the fine details. And the lighter I go, the less I have any of those activities in my own body to be recording. And so by receiving energy and to measuring to a pressure gradient of what we're actually trying to accomplish here is yeah, it's lovely. I can feel all that happening. I can feel my recovery of balance start to take place because I don't have to violently jerk into recovery. I can stand up and consider recovery. I can consider a secondary attack with my other hand, and I can consider the effect of this asymmetry that he's creating on this side. And I can feel as my weight shifts to where I could maybe reach out and touch it. Whoa! Too late. Can't do it. So I get a lot of information that way. And the feedback of information into my nervous system is what I'm building my Aikido out of. It's not abstraction. It's not theories and projections. It's not learn this technique and that technique. It is actually the building of information systems into skill sets. And Uke is a huge part of how we do that.